Hello sewing friends, welcome back to my sewing room in the north of England on what is a very blustery, wet and windy day. It's getting towards the middle of November and in my sewing basket at the moment I've got some Christmas fabrics vying for room with some nice craft fabrics that I bought on my recent trip to Cambridgeshire. And just recently I've been doing some quite big projects, quilts, and they've taken longer than I thought, and I've still got about 3 to finish. But I thought I'd take a pause and have a bit of an easy sewing day, a slow sewing day you could say, and just start to ease into the holiday and Christmas season. And I've also started to think about Christmas decorations, and this is as far as I've got in the sewing room. In the north of England at this time of year, once the owl's gone back, we've gone from British summertime back to Greenwich Mean Time, it does get very dark very early, and when the weather's like this you need all the help you can get. So I've fished out some little lights, and that's the start of my Christmas decorations, and make ahead some gifts. So I'm going to show you how to make this little gift bag, and it's lined, and you can line it with plain fabric, or you can line it with, if you want it to be a bit more special, you can also line it with some other appropriate fabric. On this one I've got this lovely holly green and red on the outside, and on the inside I've got a nice music fabric in golden cream, which makes it look rather special. And I've a great big box full of ribbon scraps, so I'm determined to use some of those up. And so that's what I'm doing today. And I'll also be producing an Etsy pattern, and that'll have the instructions and the template for this one, but also for 2 bigger sizes as well, which I'll also show you how big they are. But that will be in the Etsy pattern, which you can download from my Etsy page. It's only a few pound. So, but I'll be showing you start to finish how to make this little one today. Hope you enjoy the video. So here's what's vying for space in my basket on my sewing table at the moment. If you've watched my Cambridge travelogue video, which was just the last video or the one before that, I bought these lovely craft cottons, which I haven't broken into yet, and going to make some things with those in the next few days. Then I've just recently, things are piling up, that's a Christmas one, yeah. So just recently I did get some little Christmas fat quarters as well. So this small bag you can easily get out of a fat quarter. The biggest one that I do, you need yardage of fabric to do that. There's another one of the nice craft ones, and I particularly love this one with the golden. I love gold touches on fabric, just one of my favourite things. And then further down here, what we've also got is some of the other craft. These are Lewis and Irene fabrics, which I made patchwork tote bag out of when I went to Cornwall. So if you haven't seen that video and that trip, that's 2 videos. One is the making the patchwork bag, and one is the trip. So check those out as well. But today we're going to make this bag. So what you'll need is, I'm going to do this one slightly differently. I'm going to use this green ribbon as the tie. I'm going to make the handles out of the same fabric as this. So it's going to have this on the outside, and then the gold fabric on the inside, the golden cream on the inside. So whereas that's not strictly a holiday or Christmas season fabric, it does have that vibe, and it's nice for a lining fabric, and I've got plenty of this. And again, it's got the thing I really like, which is I love fabric with music on. A lot of it's very dull, but I think this is really rather special, and it's got the gold little touches on it, which makes it special. But you can just use a plain lining. You don't have to have fancy lining. If you've watched my other bag videos, you'll know that you'll know that I absolutely love fancy linings on bags. And I think when you look inside a bag, it makes a huge difference if there's a special lining inside. I know that's not always possible, but if you can and get the lining to set off the outside fabric, that's one of my favourite things in sewing. Just me? Right, so let's get on with this bag. Now what I suggest is if you're making a few, so if you're making a few for Christmas or whatever, you want to get a stock of them ready if you want to do some homemade gifts. What I suggest you do is make yourself a template like this. Make yourself a template because it saves time. So that's 1.5 inches. That's 1.5 inches. That is 8 inches. And that is 6.5 inches. So out of this, with this template, you need to cut 2 of the outside fabric. Just going to press this. We're not rushing today, it's a slow sewing day. So I'm just going to cut this out now. What you also need to do is cut out exactly the same 2 out of a fusible fleece, fusible interface, so the thin stuff, and a lining fabric, exactly the same, so 2 of those as well. And for this one, so you can use shop bought tape for the handles, or you can make handles, and I'm going to make the handles. I'll show you how to do that. So need the handles, which need to be 12 inches long. You need 2 pieces which are 12 inches, 12.5 inches, no sorry, 12 inches by 1.5 inches. So I'll just cut at 3, and then I will slice it in half. You'll notice that I don't use rotary cutters. I find them quite hard on the hands. I find I need to put a lot of pressure on. Let me just measure that. You have to grip them quite tightly, put quite a lot of pressure on. You need to be standing up really to put the pressure on. It's not very good for a slow sewing day because you're on your feet, and they have their place, but I'd rather be using scissors. Good sharp pair of scissors that in theory can be sharpened if you need to. So just turn a tiny little hemming at the side, down the sides. this iron very long. Bought it from a trip to Cornwall because I wanted a new small iron to take with me, and my previous quilting stroke travel iron was a well-known make, and I'm left-handed, and the cable came outside here, which means when you're ironing, you're constantly ironing over the cable. And I searched high and low for an ambidextrous one, and I finally found one, and I'm really pleased with it. Probably be asking too much to have a left-handed one, but I'll go for ambidextrous because at least I'm not constantly ironing over the cable. And on top of that, it's actually a really nice little iron. You put the steam on as you use it, so it's not constantly belching out steam and wasting the water in the reservoir, because obviously with it being a very small iron, the reservoir is very small, and I quite like that feature of it. I'll put a link to that in the description amongst a few other things that I use. I'm not doing this very well, am I? I've actually made these too narrow. I've said 1.5 inches for this. I'd actually do 2. This is too narrow. Don't know what I was thinking of there. Do them 2 inches wide. This will do for now. That's what you get for sewing and talking at the same time. Right, so I'm making these for Christmas, but can of course also make them for any occasion. I'm going to make one for tomorrow as a present for somebody. Over the last few months I've been making homemade presents. So I'm having a homemade Christmas. Making 5 Christmas quilts. Oh, I've lost count, it might be 6, I can't remember. First thing to do is to sew up the handles, which I've tossed somewhere in that way that I do. Now, I haven't done these very well. One of them's a bit too thin, and they are both a bit too thin actually. As I said, I told you to cut it 1.5 inches. Don't cut it 2. And as I say, the instructions for this one and 2 bigger sizes will be available on my Etsy page. Just make sure they're both the same length. So mark the centre of each of your outer pieces like this. And then I'm just using my mat as a guide. So then place the handles so that they are 1 inch either side of that. So the inside of the strap, the handle, is an inch either side of the centre point. Oops, do the other one to match. Also make sure that your straps aren't twisted. The next thing is to get your tying ribbon to tie the top of the bag up. Now on this one I used some velvet ribbon, but and I used that for the handles, but I actually think it's better the other way around. So I'm just thinking you need two that are 12 inches long. I'd say 10 to 12 inches long. Cut your ribbons at an angle, they won't fray. Obviously don't cut the end that you're going to attach as an angle, otherwise it won't attach properly. So then pin that like that. Over the middle. This ribbon's got a shiny side and a not shiny side. So the next thing to do is just, if you've got an adjustable stitch on your sewing machine, just turn it to a larger stitch. So effectively you're tacking it in place. So now you can take the pins out, you've got it tacked in place. So next thing to do is to get your two pieces of lining fabric and place them right sides together. With the outer fabric. Pin those in place. So when you sew, you need to now sew along here with I would say a 1/4 inch seam allowance, because it's a very small bag. So I was going to say 1/2 inch, but 1/2 inch or less. So when you're doing this bit, just be careful that you don't catch this up here like this and sew through it. So just be a bit careful when you're sewing it. So next, line up the two sides of the bag, tuck the ribbon in so it doesn't get caught in the seam. Line them up like this, right sides together, tuck the ribbon in. So start at the seam and turn one seam allowance one way and one the other way so that you don't have a bulky end to your bag. Put a pin in, turn it round. Again, turn one side one way, one the other way. Put a pin in, and then pin all the way round. Going to go round here, on there, back stitch there, leave this, back stitch, sew there, back stitch, leave that, back stitch, so all the way along there, back stitch. It's not right, is it? Right, so we're going to sew all the way along here, back stitch there, leave this, sew all the way along here, back stitching at both ends, leave this, start sewing here, put a back stitch, just sew a little bit, put a back stitch and leave that gap there. Start again here, do a back stitch, go all the way around here, stop there, do a back stitch, leave this, and then do there with a back stitch at either end. In case you don't know, the back stitch is so that you lock the stitch so that when you're manoeuvring the bag apart, you don't pull the stitches apart. So start with a back stitch, back, back stitch, yeah. Now all I need to do is where we've left the gaps. Just sew across the corner on all 4 of the gaps. Now turn it inside out, right side out, through the gap we left. So I'm just going to top stitch all the way around the top of the bag now. Now an optional step is to press the corners like this. And just top stitch where you've pressed. Don't need to go right to the top, it's just to give the bag a bit of structure. Not essential. So I've got a huge box here of scraps of ribbon and selvages and things like that, and so in making these bags I sort of set myself a target of maybe using some of these up. So this is a personal thing, I do actually really like selvages on fabric, so I thought for this one I might use this selvage. In case you're wondering what this is a Robert Kaufman fabric called All That Jazz. But the detail that's gone into the selvage as well, I love the little violins in different colours. So I'm going to remove this and see if I can use it for the straps. I've also got this scrap of bias binding, no idea what I had that for. So if there's enough of it, need two like that, yes there is. I could maybe sew those to each other like this. going to do. And then for the ribbon, that's the inside. So you don't need to always use quilting cotton for these bags. That's a piece of leftover lining material. So that's the lining. And then using some of my Aurifil top stitch thread. So somebody in the comments suggested this for top stitching, and I'd never actually, I'd heard of it, but I'd never actually used it, and it's absolutely lovely for top stitching. I'm just going to use this now for the whole of this bag because it's the right colour, including the straps. But it's lovely for this. It's also lovely for hand stitching as well. Used it on my Cambridge travelogue video when I was finishing one of the quilts. So if you've been watching from the beginning, you'll know that I'm having a slow stitching day today. Well, it's actually run into the second day, and that's because I have actually got quite a lot of sewing to do. Just having a bit of a pause. Ja. So the last thing I'm going to show you is I'm actually going to make another bag, which is for a friend for, well, it's a gift, but the gift is going in this bag. So it's the same as the small ones, but these are her favourite colours. I managed to find a piece of ribbon. It's a little bit shorter than I need, but that's going to be for the ties because it matches exactly. And I've made some fabric candles, so you might remember me saying that I thought that these were a little bit narrow and stringy, and so I cut these 2.5 inches, folded in a little hem and then folded it in half. I've also stiffened it with a little 1-inch strip of usable interface down the middle as well, just so that they stand up on their own. So whereas these droop, these will stand up, which will hopefully look quite nice. I love the way these colours go together. So this is new fabric that I bought on my Cambridge trip as a fat quarter, and these are scraps, and I had the interface already, and this is some fabric I had already, and that's out of my scrap box of ribbon, so quite pleased with that. One of the things I quite like about slow stitching days is doing things like this. I find matching fabrics together, if you've watched my other videos you'll have heard me say it, but I find matching fabrics together really relaxing. I can actually feel my heartbeat going slower when I get fabrics out and start choosing fabrics, especially when there's no pressure. So that's what I like doing. Right, the first thing to do with this one is to mark the halfway point of the top, and then place the handles so that the inside of the handle is 1 inch either side of that central point. So this is the smallest of the handles. This is the smallest of this is the smallest of the bags, and as I mentioned earlier, you might have missed it, I've actually made an Etsy pattern with 4 sizes in it, and that's available on my Etsy page. It's only a few pounds, and that will give you a template for 4 sizes. This is the smallest, that's medium, and there's 2 sizes above that. Just make sure that your handles aren't twisted. Then get your tying ribbon, and that goes like this. I should be putting the pins in the other way, but never mind. So that goes on the middle. Oh, sorry, that should be right side down, so right sides facing, because this ribbon has 2 sides, you need it to be right sides facing, so that when you tying up the bag, you can see the good side on the outside. Didn't matter with that silky cream ribbon because that's shiny on both sides, but this one is a velvet ribbon. But that piece of, I don't know what I bought that for, I have no idea, I don't remember using it, but that piece has been in my scrap box for absolutely ages. It's a little bit smaller than I need, but it doesn't matter, it's going to get used up now. So I just need to tack these in place. wanted to make a few of these, as I say, best thing to do is make a template, because it's easier to cut everything out with a template. These in place. So this lining doesn't have a right and wrong side, but if it did, you put it right sides together. This would be the wrong side. So now, keeping the ribbon out of the way and the handles, put these two so that you've got the two ends matched up. And first of all, start by matching up that seam and turn the seam allowance in the opposite direction. One way and one the other, so that you don't get a big bulky seam there. Place first. Make sure you don't have the handles in the way. So leave a gap in one of the sides so that you'll be able to turn your bags back out. Pin it all around. Do is we're going to start here, sew down there, back stitch, leave this, back stitch, sew there, back stitch, leave this, back stitch, sew down there. I'm sorry, stop there, leave a gap, and back stitch. That just means do a few reverse stitches to lock it so that it doesn't all pull apart, down to here and so on, all the way around. If you press a line to where the corner is of the bag, so press a line in line with that corner, parallel. Just gives the bag a little bit more structure. So again, up to that corner. You don't need to go right from the bottom to the top, but just from most of that side, just to give it a bit of strength. And sew up the gap in the lining. So recently I've been making some hand creams. So this is what my present's going to be. That's going in here. Just so happen to have some appropriate coloured cord. Another scrap. So that can go in there. Bag's a bit big actually. And this lovely fabric, that colour. So I made her a little scrunchie as well. Little thank you present.